This is the all-new Nissan Qashqai. It's the third generation model of a car that blazed a crossover-shaped trail through the family car class. In fact, even though the second generation model has been on sale for 8 years now, it's still the best-selling SUV in the UK. So how is this car going to carry on that success?
Indeed, Nissan has just passed the milestone of 1 million crossover sales in the UK alone, and it's just as much of a strong seller throughout Europe. So as you'd expect, Nissan isn't messing around when it wants to keep its hands on such a popular part of the market. This latest model gets a complete overhaul that includes new styling, better practicality, upgraded tech and more efficient engines.
For this latest Qashqai, the design is an evolution of the previous model, but it's overall very much sharper. At the front here, we have a grille which is familiar to the old car, but it's a little bit larger. And then we have these very sharp headlights cut into the front end. From the edge of the headlight here, we have a line which goes all the way along the side of the car and wraps right around the back too. Like the front, the back itself is recognizable from the previous Qashqai, but again, it just has much sharper lines and more angular lights. And as a first for this version of the Qashqai, it's now available with 20-inch alloy wheels.
Up close, the new model looks much more substantial than the last one, which is a clever design trick as it's only 35mm longer and 32mm wider than before. It rides on the CMF-C platform, which is an evolution of the second gen Qashqai, but a greater use of high-strength steel, optimised bonding techniques and a reshaped floor structure make it stronger and more rigid than ever. And as soon as you start prodding bits of the interior, it feels like it's a lot stronger inside too.
This Qashqai's cabin is so much smarter than it was on the previous version. There's a few details and trim pieces in here that remind me of the Aria that we looked at a few weeks back, and then there's some other great additions too. I really like this soft quilted leather on the seats here. There's an all-new steering wheel, and the air conditioning controls are still physical, which is a really great thing. The vents have been moved lower to accommodate this new touchscreen.
The infotainment system was one of the bits which let the Qashqai side down compared to the competition. This new system benefits from some of the improvements that were introduced towards the end of the old car's life, plus new systems altogether. While the layout is largely similar to before, the display has grown to 9 inches and has a much sharper resolution. It gets a range of online services too, including fuel prices, Google Street View and speed camera information. The new screen works alongside new digital dials, which are bright and clear, while the top spec Qashqais will also get a high-res head-up display. Stick your smartphone on the new wireless charging pad and you'll not only benefit from the fastest charger in the class, but iPhone users can also get wireless Apple CarPlay. Android Auto is standard too, but that still needs a good old-fashioned wire to make it work.
Now, the first thing you notice even before you get into the back of the Qashqai is that these doors open all the way to 90 degrees. That's going to be so useful if you're wanting to load a child seat or something else bulky. Once you are inside, it's actually pretty roomy too. There's loads of space under this seat for my feet, knee room's good, headroom's not bad at all, and this centre seat is also really wide.
Nissan has put plenty of thought into making the new car even more usable and practical for the sort of family life that most Qashqais will be tasked with. Front shoulder room is up 28mm, while there's bigger door pockets and repositioned cup holders to make the best use of every inch of space. Move around to the back and the good news continues.
That's because if we take a look at the Qashqai's boot, which now opens electrically, you'll see that boot volume has increased to 504 litres. That's 74 more than on the previous one. It's also comfortably more than the Ford Kuga and in the same ballpark as the Skoda Karoq. It's a practical shape too, and also the boot floor is reversible and it's wiped clean on one side. And for the first time in a Qashqai, there's also a 12-volt socket in there.
That combines with a bonnet, doors and front wings that are made from aluminium, which results in a car whose body in white is 60 kilos lighter than the old car. The wheelbase is grown by 20mm, while a redesigned suspension aims to thrust the new model towards the top of the class for comfort. Then we come to the engines. The bulk of the range is filled by a 1.3 litre turbocharged petrol you could get in the old car, but it's been updated and now it features mild hybrid tech. It's available with either 138 or 156 brake horsepower and up to 270 Nm of torque. Front-wheel drive is standard on base models, while four-driven wheels are optional for the most powerful mild hybrid. Diesels have been dropped from the range completely. The biggest change though comes in the form of an all-new hybrid unit that's named e-Power. It's been used in a smaller form in some Japanese models for a little while, but it's new to Europe and this Qashqai. It works a little differently to most of the other hybrids on the market, so I shall now explain to you how it all works by blowing the entire AutoExpress graphics budget.
So if you take a look at my first slide, you can see how a conventional hybrid works, say something like a Toyota Prius. Now this is greatly simplified, but essentially the engine can drive the wheels directly. It can also drive a generator which charges the battery, and that battery provides energy to an electric motor which can either drive the wheels on its own or at the same time as the combustion engine. Now, with Nissan's e-power system in the Qashqai, it's a little bit different. The engine never actually drives the wheels at all. It only ever charges a battery, which drives a motor, which then drives the wheels. And that brings with it quite a few benefits.
In other words, the drivetrain should give you that sort of uncannily smooth power delivery you get from EVs, and there won't be any lag from the gearbox while you're waiting for the engine to wake up. It also means that the engine can be left to generate electricity at its most efficient rev range, so it should use less fuel this way too. Flick a switch and the regenerative braking will increase to the point where one pedal driving is possible, just like the all-electric Leaf. The engine itself is a clever piece of work. The 1.5 litre turbo has variable compression so that it can produce lots of power when it's needed, but sit fuel when it's just topping up the battery. The electric motor delivers 184 brake horsepower and 330 Nm of torque to the front wheels. The battery itself is fairly compact and sits in the middle of the floor. Fully electric range is on a par with a conventional hybrid like a Prius, so depending on the conditions it'll only do about a mile or so before the engine needs to kick in. Now we won't be able to drive the Qashqai just yet, but it's going up against a lot of very healthy competition. The recently updated Peugeot 3008 is great to drive and has the poshest, best built cabin in the class. The new Hyundai Tucson has brilliant tech and it's impressively refined, while the Skoda Karoq is a great all-rounder but only has one Q in its name. Then there's the hatchbacks like the latest Volkswagen Golf and the Ford Focus, which aren't quite as spacious but are as tempting as ever. Can the Qashqai beat the lot? Well, that depends on how it's priced and how it drives, and we'll have to wait until the summer for both. In the meantime, let us know whether you think the Qashqai has what it takes by leaving your comments below, and click on the video windows for more content like this.